Hey guys, so I'm back. This video is on my third and final miscarriage. I am speaking into existence that I will not miscarry ever again. Um, this time I got pregnant January of 2018, so it was only 4 months in between again for me to conceive. And when I found out I was pregnant, of course, I was nervous because of my last two experiences, but I just wanted to do everything in my power this time to make sure that this pregnancy was successful. So if I had like a little ache and pain, I was calling the doctor and trying to figure out what I needed to do because I didn't want to sit there like I did the other two times or the last time and just miscarry. So I requested to have a ultrasound done at every appointment because I just wanted to make sure that my cervix wasn't shortening or that I was dilating and no one knew. So from maybe about 8 weeks on out, every time I went to the doctor, I wanted to see my baby. It wasn't enough for me to hear the heartbeat. Like I just wanted to see everything. And I think it was maybe my 12 or 13-week appointment, I asked the doctor to do an ultrasound, and he did, and my cervix was like 2.5 centimeters. And at that time, he made it seem like, okay, that's fine. You're fine. Don't worry about it. But when I got to my 15th week appointment, I requested an ultrasound, and I told the doctor the reason why was because I miscarried that week, and I just wanted to make sure everything looked fine, and it didn't. Because when he did that ultrasound, he was like, oh, and I kind of knew already, like, okay, what is it? And he said, it looks like you're funneling. And if you're not sure what funneling is, it's kind of like you're opening like from the top down. So he said, I'm going to get you to go to a specialist ASAP. So he called the specialist, and I had to go there tomorrow, the next morning. And when I got there, they did an ultrasound and they confirmed it. I was funneling and it looked like my cervix has already shortened, which will lead to me going into labor. So what she said was, okay, we're going to place a cerclage. She told me about all the different type of cerclage. She told me about the transabdominal, the transvaginal, and then the um, I forget the name of it, TVC cerclage. And she told me that they would place the transvaginal in hopes that I could carry the baby to at least 30 weeks. So I went straight to the hospital from there, and that next morning I had my cerclage placed. Um, it's not painful. They told me I may experience mild cramping and bleeding or whatnot, but I didn't have any cramping. I did have like light spotting, but it wasn't bad. They put me on bed rest, no sexual activity, pelvic rest completely. So I every day was like it was something because some days I would be fine, and then some days I would have like bleeding, and then some days I would have like a lot of discharge. Like it was just a lot with that pregnancy. Um, I got to 18 weeks and I started feeling bad one day. Like I was having like pain in my legs, and I just got up. They told me, of course, don't stand as much as you can. So I just sat in the tub and I just let the water hit my legs. I felt really bad. And before that day was over, I started bleeding. Like I had a lot of blood just flowing out. So I already knew I called my doctor, and I just went straight to the hospital because I already knew that I had lost that pregnancy. Because even while I was on bed rest, I started Googling incompetent cervix. I started Googling transvaginal cerclage and what to expect, what, the success rates were. And with the emergency cerclage, like they had gave me, it was like a 50-50 chance. It was either I was going to carry the term or I wasn't. So when I started bleeding heavily like that, I already knew that it was the end of the pregnancy. And when I got there, they put me in a room. They tried to see how much bleeding it was. And when they noticed it was heavy bleeding, they went ahead and cut my stitch. That wasn't painful. It may have been because I was already in pain from trying to be in labor, but I had the stitch and I couldn't be in labor. I don't know, but removing the stitch wasn't painful. And then maybe 3 minutes after they removed the stitch, I was delivered the baby and the placenta was stuck again. So they had to do an emergency DNC and the baby was removed. That miscarriage hit me hard. It took me a while to get over the idea of losing another baby. In the hospital, I went to Piedmont to deliver, and I must say they were some of the most caring and compassionate nurses that I had ever dealt with. They just hugged you. They told you it was going to be okay. Everything that you want to hear when you're dealing with that type of situation, they said it. And it wasn't just like they were just saying it because they were supposed to. It's like they were just really sincere. So they gave me like a gift. She asked me if I wanted to hold my baby, if they dress your baby up and they take pictures, and she just was just real open and just, I don't even know the right words to say. Like, she was just great. I stayed there overnight, and when I left that next day, they didn't put me on any type of bed rest or, it was just regular activity. So I just kind of just stayed home and tried to cope with the idea of dealing with another loss. And this time, since I knew that my cervix was incompetent, I just went ahead and I started trying to figure out what to do, what was next. Because that same doctor that told me, or my maternal fetal medicine doctor that told me that I needed the cerclage, is the same one that told me I had an abruption last time. But it wasn't her fault. I didn't take it out on her or anything. I just was kind of angry at myself because I knew with my last loss that I needed more, but I kind of ignored it after she told me that it was probably a placenta abruption that I had. But this time I took matters into my own hand, and Googling and stuff, I found Abby Loopers, and I joined Abby Loopers. If your cervix is incompetent, I suggest you to join them as well. It's a free forum. It's just women on there talking about their experiences, what they did, and what to do to, deal with the loss or dealing with incompetent cervix. And I saw a Dr. Haney on there. So it took me about maybe 2 months to call Dr. Haney or make an appointment with his staff to speak with him. And they are some good people at that office, I tell you. They reach out to you immediately. If you reach out to them, they're going to respond immediately. They don't have a delay of any type. So I contacted the office and I spoke with his receptionist, Ashley Noel, and I made an appointment with her to have my free over the phone consultation. And it took me, I think that was maybe about 2 weeks later, my consultation was scheduled for. And when I spoke with Dr. Haney, he pretty much is like, what do you think I'm going to tell you? And I said, I think you're going to tell me that my cervix is incompetent. And he said, yes, it is. And you shouldn't have dealt with a second loss like this. The first one, was the last one you should have had. And he goes into details about everything. I mean, because when you make your consultation with him, he's going to ask you to send everything about your previous medical history, so he knows and he reviews it. So when you have your phone consultation, he's prepared, he's ready to talk about you. And when I say he's an amazing doctor, he made me feel a lot better when I got off the phone with him. He pretty much told me my cervix was incompetent, that I can go on to have kids, that I will have kids, but if I wanted to have kids, the best option for me was going to be a transabdominal cerclage. Because remember, I already had my transvaginal and it failed me. Even though it was an emergency one, if it wasn't an emergency cerclage, if I would have had just a regular transvaginal cerclage placed at 10 or 12 weeks, it's about a 75% chance that I would have made it to full term. Because honestly, they don't tell you, but when you have a transvaginal cerclage, the hope is just for you to make it to 28 weeks, and the rest of the time your baby will pretty much be in ICU, which can be expensive, which can be not easy for the parent. It just was too much. After I dealt with that last transvaginal cerclage, I didn't want to deal with it again. I know everyone is different. Some people say, well, let's just do a less invasive surgery. For me, it wasn't an option. So after I spoke with Dr. Haney, I already knew that I wanted to have a TAC placed. And I made that appointment to have my TAC placed with his receptionist in September. She gives you all the dates that he has available. Everything you need, they give it to you. I am not kidding when I say they are some very compassionate people. I had my cerclage placed on September 18th. In my next video, I'll talk about that experience and how great it was for me. But if I didn't learn anything else from this third miscarriage, I learned that every miscarriage is different. Every pregnancy is different. Give yourself time to cope, because just because you've dealt with it more than once doesn't mean that it's not going to hurt you, because it will hurt you and it will make you feel bad. But like I said, it is not your fault. I said it before and I'll say it again. It's not your fault if you miscarried. I did everything in my power, I felt like, this time to make sure that I didn't miscarry, and it still happened. But I was just born with incompetent cervix. My cervix is just, I dilate too soon. It can be fixed. So I won't make myself angry about it. What I will say is that, just surround yourself, if you're dealing with a miscarriage, with people that love you, that truly want the best for you, because you need that love and support right now. Love on your husband. I know for me, with my miscarriages, it just felt the best to have my husband around. Like, I just was all over him all the time, because it just made me feel good to know that he still loved me even though I lost his children. So I say that don't be angry with yourself. Don't be angry with your husband. Don't be angry with anybody if you are dealing with the loss. It happens. It happens to the best of us. And our rainbow baby will be here one day. Watch my next video on Dr. Haney and his amazing staff and the placement of my transabdominal cerclage.